Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Al-Masri. Seif El-Sahly has renovated over 150 units in 3 years. He breathes new life into abandoned and poorly managed properties, transforming them into modern spaces. On this episode, we discuss growing up in Abu Dhabi, his journey as a real estate investor, why he became a general contractor and how he started his company, how he slowly transitioned from working full-time into his construction business, and how he manages up to 20 carpenters at once. So if you guys are interested in learning more about the construction business, this can also help you if you are hiring contractors, then this is a great episode for you. Remember to leave us a 5-star review if you appreciate the content. Make sure to share this with a friend or family member. And finally, if you're interested in taking on a big renovation project, we have a really cool fourplex conversion in downtown Hamilton that's currently unfinished. So the right person can come in, take over the project, and create a beautiful legal fourplex. We also have a 2-unit property in downtown Hamilton that's available for sale. So feel free to contact me if you want to discuss. You can go to welloff.ca and book a call, or go to Instagram and check me out at welloffx. Enjoy the episode. This episode was brought to you by Mortgage Dawn with Go Pineapple. All right, I'm here with Seif. Thank you for coming by. It's the first time we meet. I was mentioning to you that I've seen a bunch of your videos on Instagram before, so you guys do a really good job with that. Awesome. But I like to just start off by asking you about where you grew up, a couple things you remember from when you were a kid.
Okay. I grew up in the United Arab Emirates. So I was born in a city called Abu Dhabi, which is neighboring Dubai. Mm-hmm. Everybody always knows Dubai, but Abu Dhabi is the capital.
Yeah. Any memories from that time?
You know what? Back then it was a city, but it wasn't the way it is right now.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more, I mean, you can't really call it suburban, but it was a lot quieter than things are right now.
I've seen some photos of like what Dubai looked like in the 80s, and it looks like a desert. And then they show you the progression over the years and what it looks like now. Now it looks like New York, or like really.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's the fanciest, the biggest, and the best of everything. So everything they do, they want to exceed. So whatever the tallest building is, they're going to build a taller one.
Yeah.
Whatever the biggest island, man-made island is, they're going to make a bigger one.
Yeah, yeah.
They even have indoor, they don't have any snow, obviously. Mm-hmm. So they have it man-made indoors in the mall.
I've seen that, yeah, like indoor skiing hills and whatnot. I'm just going to adjust your microphone just one sec. There you go. That's good. Just want to make sure it's in line there. What's your background? Is it like, is your family from Abu Dhabi or?
No, I'm originally Egyptian.
Okay.
So my mom and dad are Egyptian.
Yeah.
And then they moved to Abu Dhabi, like the United Arab Emirates, in the oil boom in the 90s.
Okay.
And then basically I was born there.
Yeah, okay.
And then I moved here in 2006.
2006.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So tell me about your journey. Like 2006, you come here. How did you get involved in construction, just in all of that?
So I come from a family of engineers, so which is like
not surprising, right?
Yeah, super typical
Yeah.
back home.
Yeah.
And my dad's an engineer, my cousins are, my uncle's an engineer. And I came here, I was in high school. Obviously, I got into engineering. So I did that, I studied it. Mm-hmm. And then my first internship, I was in Quebec, and I was working on designing an aluminum smelter in New York State. Okay. So that was my first exposure to kind of construction. Second internship, the same company took me back, but I went up north in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. So I was on site, hands-on kind of with the guys and stuff like that in the field, which is a way better learning experience. Did that, I got a third internship, and then after that I was hired full-time with them. So I did a bit of the fly-in and fly-out, which gave me a lot of exposure to construction. Though the total may have only been call it a year and a half or 2 years, it's really accelerated because we would work base hours is 70 hours a week. Mm-hmm. So 10 hours a day, plus lunch type of thing for every single day. And then you do that for 3 weeks, and then you can fly back home for 1 week. Mm-hmm. So I'd say like the initial exposure I got to construction was really accelerated.
Yeah, for sure. That's intense to work 10 hours 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But just for 3 weeks, basically, right?
Just for 3 weeks, then you fly back for a week.
Yeah, okay. So then how did that lead to you getting, I guess, is you have your own construction company now, right? Like
Correct,
you're the owner of it.
Yes.
So how did your experience lead to you owning your own construction company?
So when I finished the remote location work, I came back here and I decided I wanted the lifestyle change. People that work in that kind of sector often get sucked in, and it's really, really hard to leave. So you'll see a lot of their guys that are in their 50s and 60s, and it's really hard to pull back because you just make a ton of money and overtime, and there's no expenses and stuff like that. So I said, you know what, I want to be able to do the same thing but in the city. So then I got a job in the city. I found out the pay is like a third of what I used to make. So that obviously didn't pan out. So I said, okay, you know what, well, maybe I get in business for myself. I try and do something on the side. And I'd saved up a bunch of money from working up north. So I bought my first rental property. It needed a little bit of work, hired someone, kind of handyman, did a decent job, started collecting rent. 3 months later, I got another one, but needed a bit more work. So with that one, I hired a general contractor. That job, I was expecting it to need $40,000 worth of work. And this was in 2016. That was a lot for me. Like, that was a lot for me at that time. So I had gone in, I got the general contractor, and then I wasn't happy with the work. The quality was really like, it didn't wow me. I wouldn't even say it was average. And then the project took more than twice as long as what was expected. So $40,000 job was supposed to be 3 months. At 6 months, it was only like 80% done. So then I fired him. And then I started doing the work myself. Started looking stuff up, talking to friends that are in the trades, and then working on my own. And this was off work hours. So like really early in the morning and then after work. After that, I hired someone to kind of help with me. They were doing the work with me, and then I'd go to the office, and then I'd come back at the end of the day and take a look at all the work that was done.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
So at that point,
How old were you, by the way, at that time?
25.
25.
Yes.
Okay. So in 2016.
2016, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So at that point, I had of course gotten a bit of exposure to construction. So I started posting some of our stuff online, and people liked it, and they said, "Hey, can you give me a quote for my place?" So I said, "Sure." I'd go there with the handyman that was sort of working with me, and we'd give prices. So then I remember I got my first job. It was $3,500, but we finished in 1.5 days.
Okay.
And then I looked at the total cost, the total in my pocket, and I said, this is what I make working almost an entire month net. This is crazy. So I said, you know what? Obviously, the path to success is being self-employed and then starting your own business and stuff like that. So that's when I really got interested in taking this further and growing the company to be much larger.
So did you commit to it at that point, or did you still have to kind of slowly transition out of working?
I slowly transitioned.
Yeah.
And here's why. Everybody always talks about the leap of faith, but sometimes some risk is unnecessary. And one thing that people don't talk about enough is things like credit and lending. Banks love pay stubs. They love T4s. If you want to buy a house, you better not just have the same amount of income that you're making, you better have triple, quadruple that. And then on top of that, they're then going to be looking at 2-year financial statements. So your business has to be a somewhat established size for a couple of years before you can actually make a safe transition over and get the same amount of credit. So I jumped ships. I quit my job finally in early 2019.
Okay. So it took you about 3 years.
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah.
Yes. But when you start a business, the thing is in 2016, for the first year, it's not really a business. It's a piece of paper and you're trying to, scrap stuff together and it's just a hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just trying to do whatever you can. You don't really know what you're doing exactly. And then as time goes on, did you ever take any courses or anything like that on how to run a construction business, or did you just figure it out on the fly?
No, more like, obviously I got some experience from working in a mega large construction company and then having a lot of people around me that are in the construction background. And I like reading a lot of self-help books. So I read all the time. Yeah. Well, I say read, but I mean like audiobooks. That's more what I listen to them.
Yeah, listen to audiobooks. So do I.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your crew like now? Like how many guys do you have working for you?
So depends on the time of year. We'll have up to 20 people that work with us full time, and then we have a ton of sub trades.
Okay. So up to 20 people full time. Yes. You're talking about like carpenters, and are you including electricians and plumbers and all that? Okay.
No, electricians and plumbers, those are licensed, and those we always sub out.
Yeah, you just
generally speaking, we do all the interior in-house. Mm-hmm. So those, call them 15 to 20 people, will fluctuate. Primarily work on interior finishes.
Okay. So you have like 20 guys that are installing kitchens, baseboards, flooring, all that?
Exactly. Framing, drywall, taping, paint, doors, some miscellaneous finishes like stairs, depending on the type.
Porches, decks, that kind of thing as well?
Yes, but sometimes we have other sub-trades that we use depending on the time of year. Mm-hmm. Porches and decks and stuff all seem to come at the same time. So sometimes we're crazy busy. And if we're like that, then we use some of our sub-trades.
Got it.
And when we use sub-trades, we're not doing it in the typical sense. Like, we're not going out to the open market and getting 3 quotes type of thing. Mm-hmm. It's more the exact same people that we're using on and on. On and on.
Yeah. You just go to the same 2-3 people that you've always worked with and ask them.
Yes.
And then how much do you find that their quotes are varying based on how busy they are, the time of year, like that sort of thing?
Okay, really good question. Typically, the normal answer to that is major. If it's a busy season, everybody's prices are through the roof. Mm-hmm. But the people that we work with directly and the ones that we're always sort of subbing out to, we already have established prices with them. Mm-hmm. So if there's some fluctuation in the market, they'll bump up the material cost, but in a fair way. Mm-hmm. Most of the time what I find is, if you're a customer and you're reaching out a contractor and you only have one job type of thing, it's very different from you reaching out to a contractor. You have an existing relationship and you do 20, 30, 40 jobs.
Yeah, especially if you just did one 2-3 weeks ago at this price. He's not going to be like, oh, it's 7 times more now. Right?
Exactly. And also because the people that we partner with do have a business sense, and everybody that we work with value long-term relationships. So that's never good for long-term business.
Yeah. All right, cool. So it sounds like you've got, how did you grow to this size and that fast? Basically, it's been, 4 years since you've gone full time, and you've grown to having 20 people working for you, or up to 20 people.
Yeah. I think it's kind of one job at a time. Sometimes I look back at it and I say, wow, we're doing quite a bit of work, and then it's way more than each year. I reflect back, usually on my birthday, and then I look and I say, okay, wow, we actually take on a lot more work and a lot larger size jobs with more complexity. So it's one job at a time, because if you're taking a brand new job, and let's say 20% of the work of the value of that contract is brand new to you, you better be putting 100% focus on that contract, because it's not your bread and butter. Mm-hmm. But once you're done, now you're kind of familiar with that type of work. So I think one job at a time makes it a lot simpler to understand.
Yeah. How do you make sure that, given that you have so many people working for you, that the work is to your standard? Because sometimes, like, I've had situations where I got a recommendation from someone to work with a certain contractor, and then I've had a million issues and nothing is done right, and the corners don't meet on the trim, and the base the tiles in the bathroom are like glued onto the plywood instead of doing things properly. Mm-hmm. How do you make sure that you don't run into that sort of situation?
Well, with our in-house guys, that's never an issue, because everybody is working 7 to 3:30 unless there's overtime, and then everybody's doing work to the standards that we know. We supply the material, we have supers that do takeoff, deliver the material, laborers that bring it in. So there's no sense, nobody is incentivized in any way to cut corners. Mm-hmm. People usually that cut corners might be sub-trades, and it's if they're very short-sighted. So they're going into a job and they're like, I want to be done as quick as possible because I got a next one coming up. Yeah. But our guys are not incentivized like that. At the end of the year, we evaluate their performance. So if we found 5 red flags, for example, throughout the entire year that have to do with quality, that they're not in a good position to discuss salary bumps. Mm-hmm. So nobody on our team is incentivized by cutting corners.
Right. Okay, cool. Sounds like you're really running things like an engineer, right? Let's talk a little bit about garden suites, because we were chatting about that a little bit earlier. Tell me about the options that people have for garden suites. So either converting an existing structure like a garage in the back, or building one from scratch. Let's go down those two options and the costs and that sort of thing.
So if you have an existing garage with a decent shell, so the thing doesn't look like it's falling apart.
What would you consider a decent shell?
If you're going in, okay, I'll tell you what's not a decent shell. Yeah. Let's say you go into a garage and the concrete slab is crumbling.
Yeah.
Or there's wood planks instead of a slab and there is no slab. And you look up at the roof and some of the collar ties is like what ties the rafters together when you have a peaked roof. And those are kind of cracked, and a few of them are cut in a few spots because there's not enough headroom and stuff like that. You just see that the structure looks terrible.
Yeah.
Maybe the elements, the weather getting in, you see some water or something like that.
Yeah.
Those don't have good bones.
So it's better in that case to tear it down and rebuild.
I would still say no. Because depending on how bad it is, you may be able to salvage some things. But I'll get into that in a bit more detail. Sure. Existing versus new, you always want to, the number one, the ideal thing is for you to stick with existing with a good shell. So you walk in, you look at the roof, the trusses look decent, nothing is falling off, nothing's been chopped up, the walls are around you, you see the framing, and then you have a nice concrete slab. That's a good shell.
Yeah, well, that sounds amazing.
Exactly, yeah. But then when you start going in and you start seeing that there's structural issues, there's going to have to be work that's redone. Obviously, that's going to add a premium onto the conversion. Now, when you're looking at these kind of conversions, a safe number, I would say, and realistic, if you have a decent shell, call the garage to be 500 square feet, is 120,000.
Okay.
If you don't have that number in your head, you shouldn't even think about the conversion.
That's with running the services, like potentially adding an extra hydrometer, doing all that stuff.
Correct. That would not be with the cost of the meter, but that would be with a new panel. So
with a new panel, okay.
Yes.
So the meter is extra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then if you have to upgrade your service, that's another extra cost that you're not including in the 120.
If you have to upgrade the service to the property, but usually it's quite unlikely. Like for most addresses, you'll have a 200 amp service. And if you're doing a conversion where you're just adding one more unit, you definitely don't have to go over 200.
Yeah, I was thinking about a 5-plex that I have with a garage. Yeah. So I would probably have to upgrade, I'm guessing, in that case. But
very likely.
Yeah.
Very likely. If you have a 200 amp service, that may be a bit short. And here's why, because let's take this typical scenario where you have a home and you're turning the home into a duplex and you're adding one unit in the garage. The garage is almost going to take the exact same power of both units in the home. So it's the whole home, because we don't run any gas to the garage.
Right.
Because we do all the heat pumps, so everything is power. So if you meter it separate, the tenant's going to be paying for everything.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, continue. I kind of cut you off there, but good base. So let me actually ask you a question on this. So if you do walk into a garage and you see that the concrete slab is cracked and not in great shape, and then the collar ties are not in great shape, most of the time, would it be better to start from scratch, or would you just try to repair the existing thing anyway?
This is Don Chen, mortgage agent with Pineapple Financial. Today, I want to introduce you to a special mortgage product called Readvanceable Mortgage. The special feature about this product is that as you pay down the principal portion, it auto-converts into a line of credit. And this allows you a cost-effective way to access the equity in your home without having to go through a refinance or incur high legal and penalty costs. I would love to connect with you for all your mortgage-related questions. You can reach me at 647-961-3281, or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Mortgage Don.
You may most likely have to repair it, and that might be the better option, because
it'll be cheaper.
It may be, because if you want to build a brand new garage, here's the thing: that existing garage may be less than the allowable setbacks for current standards today. So you may have a lot line right here, and your garage is built right up against it. The second you tear that wall down, you got to go with today's standards. So you got to push it back. So now you have to justify the build. So if you're going to be building, you're not going to be building 500 square feet. You're going to build the maximum, which is 800. So it's a bigger project. It's a bigger build.
Sure.
And when you're looking at new build, 800 square feet, it's 250 and up. So it's double the cost. So if it's a matter of you losing, $7,000 to $10,000 on the slab, $8,000 to $12,000 of worth of structural, it's a $20,000 loss. But the other way, it's probably $120,000 cost difference. Yes, you're not getting the same 500 square feet, because now you're probably going to get a 2-bedroom and a much, much higher quality 2-bedroom, so you're going to get more rent. But it's one of those things as an investment strategy is how much are you coming in with? Right?
Sure.
It's a completely different project.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you are building new, what are you putting up the structure? Like, are you just putting like a little slab of concrete, or are you digging down? Are you putting in a basement? What's the general strategy?
We've had designs for either one. If you do a basement, number one, the structure shouldn't shift, right? So for it to not shift, it's got to be below frost line. So if it's a slab,
How much is that?
Frost line is 4 feet.
Okay.
So if you're putting a slab that's obviously above frost line, you got to dig piles all the way down. So you're going to have these, usually you'll put helical piles. Those will go down to whatever pressure, not just 4 feet, just whatever applicable pressure that they find, maybe 6 feet, maybe 10 feet. And then you'll pour the slab after that. So that way everything is anchored. But some people go and choose to do the basement method, where they go and they excavate 8 feet and they put a full basement in there. But that's going to cost you more.
Well, to dig the extra 2 feet potentially, I mean, is it going to cost that much more, or is
not 2 feet. 2 feet is only to bring it to frost line, but now that's not usable space. So why go 4 feet, and now you haven't gotten a fully functional space? So most people that do basements, they'll go the full 8 feet.
Yeah. But is there that much of a cost difference between digging down to the frost line versus digging down for a basement, a full basement?
Are you asking about the cost difference between 4 feet and 8 feet?
Yeah,
it would literally be double.
it would be double.
Yeah,
Okay.
because assuming you don't have anywhere to throw all the backfill, which usually on most lots they're a bit tighter, so you don't have that. So you're going to be tossing that backfill. You have twice as much.
Yeah.
You have twice as much concrete, or almost twice as much concrete.
Yeah.
So it does cost more. Like the price ends up going up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But you are getting much more. So now you're getting 800 square feet plus a fully finished basement.
Yeah, plus another 800 square foot basement, right?
There you go. So you're talking,
That's a
I don't know how much that would
decent-sized
rent for.
house.
Yes, I don't know how much that would rent for. But if we start the 1 bedroom, and I'm only talking Hamilton, like Hamilton rents. If we start the 1 bedroom on the high end, 21 to 2200, just because it's a home. Normally a 1 bedroom is 1800. And then you do the new build, that's a 2 bedroom. That'll easily be around 2600. A 2 bed with an 800 square foot basement, I can't imagine that being less than $3,000.
Yeah.
So it's a different project,
Yeah, exactly.
but also different funding.
Now, if you go back to that example where the garage has like a cracked slab or something, would you, if you're pouring a new slab, are you just repairing the existing slab exactly as it is, or do you still have to dig down to the frost line?
It depends how bad it is, but no matter what, you don't have to be going down to the frost line, assuming that the existing slab was poured properly and that there are helical piles. Okay. Many times there aren't, but in those cases it's a big gray area. So what a lot of people will do is they'll jack the slab, get rid of it. They'll probably excavate down 1.5 feet, 2 feet maximum. They'll put proper subfloor, or not subfloor, sorry, a sub base. So they'll compact the gravel, the soil, all that stuff, and then they'll pour a brand new slab as if that one was the existing. Otherwise, if you want to consider it a new slab, you got to put the piles in then.
Right. Okay, good to know. All right, so let's keep going through this process. So let's just say you are building new, you put the foundation in. What's the next step?
After you do all the earthwork, next step is the framing. So you put up the walls and then you put up the roof, whether it's trusses or it's flat roof. Usually people will do a flat roof if they want to put up a second story because there's restrictions in terms of height. So if the city are only allowing you to build 20 feet high and you have a peaked roof, by the time the peaked roof comes all the way down, you're only at sort of one level.
Yeah.
Right? So you can only put one level in. So most times if you want to go 2-story, then you're going to be going with a flat roof.
Right.
You get more on the inside, but you're going to be doing 2-ply torch, and it's going to be costing more money than just shingled roof.
Right. Are they allowing 2 stories now?
You could, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Cost more again, but you could do it, yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so you get your roof on, and then are you just like, well, I mean, before you do that, you're probably running all the services, right?
Well, you'll first frame the place. You'll put up the roof, and then you'll probably put the actual roof on, so the shingles or the flat roof, either or. And then typically after that, you would put the windows in, and then you would start running the services on the inside. So plumbing, electrical, mechanical.
So you're extending the plumbing from the basement, right? Like the sewer is gonna extend from the existing sewer in the basement out back towards the new.
Well, that's site servicing. So that's more the servicing side. So that is step 1.
Yeah.
Before the foundation.
Right.
Is you run the plumbing, electrical, mechanical, from the point of where it needs to come from,
Yeah.
which is usually the home, because you're tying into the home. Though you can tie to the city, but I don't want to get into too much detail with that because it's really not worth the money, especially if they're not letting you sever the lot, which they're not. So step one is you tie into the home, you get the servicing there, and then you do the earthworks.
Right.
So when I say plumbing, electrical, mechanical, it's from that point into the home. So where you're going to have your kitchen sink, your bathroom, your mechanical room, and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And then the rest is once you've gotten past building the roof and putting the windows in, then you're just doing the interior work, right?
Exactly. Then it's all finishes.
All finishes from there. What's the general timeline on a project like this? Like, what are you seeing these days?
4 months is aggressive. So it's, I would say, 4 to 5 months.
From start, like from scratch?
Yes, from start to finish.
Yeah. And if you have an existing structure, is that shorter?
I would say 3 to 4 months.
Okay. So it's a little bit faster that
Yes.
way. And is the city responding pretty quickly? Let's say the city of Hamilton, are they responding pretty quickly to permits, that sort of thing?
You know what? It's supposed to be simpler, but it's very dependent on the plans examiner. If you get a difficult plans examiner, it takes way longer than you expect.
Yeah.
And
What's
not
the
for a
longest
valid
that you've seen?
6 months.
Yeah. Okay. That's still not that bad.
For
I mean,
a
it's
garden
bad.
suite, it's not
bad,
that good.
but it's like,
It's almost new build timeframes, but this one was just a retro.
yeah.
It was a retrofit on an existing garage.
Did you have to go back and forth with them over things? Is that why it took so long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was this was also kind of at the when we had the spillover towards the end of COVID. So there was a lot of staff turnover, people not coming into the office and stuff like that. So on that one specifically, we ended up getting caught in one of those staffing issues where it was just something that slipped and fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
So we were getting the same comments again and again. So we got the same set of comments a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you deal with the permits as well? Getting the permits, doing the drawings, all that. Like, is your company doing that, or you guys work with somebody that does it?
We work with someone that does it, but we work very closely with them. So it's the same person that always does our permits and drawings.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's cool. And then are people generally refining their properties after they complete these projects? And like, are garden suites now being recognized by banks and financial institutions? Or, because I know for a little while that was a bit of a problem.
You know what? That's the biggest question.
Yeah.
And it's starting. It's not quite there and it's not where it should be, but it's starting to be picked up. There's a couple of lenders that will use the appraisal at face value. So whatever the appraiser says, if they say, okay, this property is worth $950, they'll take that and then they'll run their numbers based on the appraised rents and make sure that the debt services and all that good stuff. But some lenders are simply saying no. Some lenders have more specific requirements where we'll do the garage, but only if it's attached to the home. Other ones will say, we'll do the garage as long as there's access to the main street. So they won't do the laneway housing that's at the back of the property, but they'll do the garden suites, which are adjacent to the driveway. So point is, they're starting to recognize it a little bit more, and we're going in the right direction. But these projects are perfect for people that want to get in early, because these homes are still being sold at pretty much the exact same cost of a single family home. And once the banks start recognizing the garden suite conversions to give you that extra 150, 200, 250 in value, those houses are not going to be selling at that same price. So it's going to become less lucrative of an opportunity. So you have to decide whether to wait for that day and buy in at a higher price, or go in today. You'll get some more cash flow. You won't be able to pull out all your money, but then maybe you go into a 1 year or a 2 year fixed, and then you refi after that. And then at that point, odds are the value is going to be there.
Just one thing you mentioned was about the driveway. If you do have a property where you're putting a garden suite in the backyard and the driveway doesn't extend all the way up to the garden suite, do you have to do it, or it's not necessary?
Don't quote me on it. Sorry, I'm not the architect. I don't know this exact dimension,
okay.
Even though I should. But there is a requirement that, yes, you need to have enough laneway access for a firefighter to be able to basically go at the back. So I don't know what that is. It's just 4 feet or 5 feet, something like that. So you need to be able to have that laneway over there for any emergency services to come in and out. Yes.
Right. Okay. So if there's a big tree in the back that's blocking the access to the garden suite, then that might have to get taken down, or that kind of
Definitely.
thing. Yeah, which would add to the cost, obviously.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Cool. generational living, you mentioned this a little bit. So
Yeah.
that would be one of the benefits potentially of these garden suites, right? Maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
So yes, generational living is a big topic, and it's the way of, I don't want to say the way of the future, so it sounds too gimmicky, but yes, this is the way even new build homes are going to be built. That doesn't mean there's not going to be any single family homes, townhomes, and stuff like that. But there are big builders that for the first time are inquiring from large lenders, A lenders, about financing for homes that are purpose built for generational living. So that's a fancy way of saying purpose-built, new-built duplexes and triplexes, where you can have two or three different generations living in that home, and it was built like that. It's not something that's an afterthought. That's sort of like a lower quality build. So, given that that is the direction that the big builders are going in, it's a really good value add today for you to be able to buy a home and then add another unit right there, because you don't share any walls with that unit or anything. Sometimes you get them on big enough lots that garden suite is further away than the next door neighbor. So it's like, why not? Why wouldn't you do that? It's just easy value add to the property.
Yeah. And that actually makes a lot of sense. Like if you want, let's say, your parents to live with you or something, then if you have a garden suite, they have their space, you have yours, but you can still look after them and that kind of thing. So it's a great option for people that want to live with family. So aside from garden suites, which we covered a good amount of, I just kind of want to ask you, like, in terms of who you like to work with, do you prefer doing these types of projects? Do you like bigger projects? Do you like small? Like, do you take on people that are just doing a new kitchen and that sort of thing, or like, what's your preference?
We do. Those projects were more common in the past. Now we have less of those. So we do have a minimum requirement for us to be able to engage on any job.
Yeah.
It's the number we put is 25,000 and up.
Okay.
But then again, there's not many projects that are below 25,000 because that's kind of, I would say, a bit of handyman work.
Yeah.
So we do have the odd project here and there where it's someone who just wants to redo a bathroom or a kitchen. But like I mentioned, there's far and few in between, and they're less common now. What we've seen in the landscape in the last 6 months is that larger projects are being closed right now. So let's say the average reno before was, call it 150 to 200. Now we're seeing the average job is somewhere between 250 to 350, and there's a lot of commercial work that's coming in. So I think people that are active are really, really active in this market. And then the homeowners and the sort of end users that have their mortgages that have gone up 20, 30% are pulling back a little bit. So the end user renovation is not as busy as it was last year and the year before.
Sure, that makes sense. What about apartment buildings? Do you work on a lot of apartment buildings, turning over units, that sort of thing?
In the last 3 years, we've done 150 units. So the scope varies. Sometimes we go in and we fully gut them, and then other times it's just like a lipstick job. You're painting, trim, floor, doors, a bathroom, and a kitchen.
Is that something you take on? Because a lipstick job could be 10 grand, it could be 20 grand, it could be 30 grand.
It depends. We have some different arrangements with the different sort of private equity funds and people that have asset management divisions where they have a whole bunch of, call it little jobs. And normally when we come across something like that, we package them. So we'd say, okay, we're going to take these 10 homes as one package because one home needs 15,000 in work, the other one needs 50. The next one needs 35, and they're all kind of too small, but if you put them together, it's not bad. So we'll do something as like a full package.
Right. So if you have a 100-unit building and they have a couple of units that need $5,000 worth of work, well, if you get a bunch of those, then you might take something like that on.
We could.
Yeah.
5,000 is still, I'd say, pretty small.
I'm exaggerating, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But usually the apartment buildings, we would make exceptions because the owners of the apartment buildings don't enjoy having 5 different contractors in the building. So they usually want to work with one. So if we have someone with an apartment building and they come and say, oh, do these 2 units, it's only $20,000 each. We're going to do it right away because you can see all the units are right there. And once you get familiar with the building, the owner wants you to work with them because now your guys have interacted with the neighbors.
Yeah.
They know the parking situation.
And they're familiar with the plumbing and the electrical and where things go and this and that. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So apartment buildings, I say one exception where a lot of those rules would just throw out there because especially people with apartment buildings, they're not going to want to give you 10, 20 units right off the bat. They're going to give you one or two,
Yeah.
see your performance, and then they're going to give you more.
Exactly. Cool. Is there anything else? Like I know garden suites are a really popular thing now. A lot of people are asking about them. Is there any, like, are you still doing a lot of duplex conversions, or has that kind of quieted down a little bit? What are you seeing?
Duplex conversions, the problem is it doesn't pay the bills. The mortgage rates are so high. It's rare, even if you do like a quality reno where you're fully gutting, it's rare even that a duplex is going to break even.
Mm-hmm.
You need 3 units. So most of the conversions are triplexes or more.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we're seeing that even like even a fourplex conversion with the rates the way they are sometimes doesn't even cut it, or a triplex conversion. So it's I mean, it's a time right now where everybody's being careful. You have to be very careful with budgets, making sure the costs are low and all that. And I'm sure you're seeing that on your end. Yeah. Any final thoughts that you'd want to share? Anything that we didn't cover?
I would say it's possibly, if we're looking, like we're talking on the investment front, if people can focus on like the quality of the investment, makes a huge difference. Investors kind of have the tendency to always talk about things by the door. But then sometimes you have a home or a building that's too chopped up and it's all, let's say, all bachelor units. Or you get a home that really would have been a spacious 2 units and not bad 3 units, and someone sticks 4 units in there. The asset doesn't perform as well in the long term because you have high turnover, and then you always end up having a little bit less than market rents because your units are not as superior. So in a time like this where the market is up and down, and you know, with the next rate hike being around the corner, things could really slow down the market. It's always good to focus more on quality. So you get a unit, but you make sure you do more with that unit. Yes, it might cost you $5,000-$10,000 more per door, but now when you're putting that listing up and you're demanding the same rent, you're gonna have a ton more quality tenants, and it's gonna give you peace of mind for years.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I think there was a lot of good stuff in here for people to digest.
Yeah.
Maybe just to finish things off, do you want to tell people how they can reach you? And it's obvious what services you provide, but maybe you can just kind of recap it for anyone listening.
Yeah, so again, we're general contractors. Our company name is New4. You can reach us on new4.com, or the quickest and fastest way is Instagram, New4 Inc.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. It was nice seeing you face to face, and look forward to staying in touch.
Awesome. Nice seeing you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Well Off Podcast. If you enjoy the show, then I'd really appreciate if you left us a review on iTunes and let us know your thoughts. In order for us to get a larger audience, it's really important to have reviews, so your support is extremely appreciated. And also, don't forget to share the podcast with your friends and family. Until next time, I'm George Al-Masri. Have a great day.